do a rail yard for Roseville, how it would have looked approximately 100 years ago. I have the old Amador Kennedy type mine up on the hill above that station. Everything's compressed, of course. I have the Sutter's Mill right next to the river. I have some of the farming community up on the foothills with a farm, with a barn. And I have the Empire Mine over in the Sierra section, so the train does enter a Sierra section of the railroad, which it starts to pull a 3% grade all the way up to the top. When I moved out here to this area, I learned a lot about the history of the area. I learned about Sutter's Mill, the 49er Gold Strike, Amador Mines, up Eureka Mines, the quarries in Rockland, moving the railroad from Rockland to Roseville 100 years ago. So what I've tried to do is I've tried to build a railroad that takes in a lot of the key historical points of interest in Northern California. So the first version of the railroad was started about 10 years ago, which was a more simple loop that stayed close to the ground. It followed pretty much the same path as the current railroad does. The big change in the final version of the railroad was creating the Sierra section of the railroad, which is the elevated section where it starts really to pull a grade up into the simulated mountains, shall we say. So that was the big addition, but did go through and relay all the original track. In the original version, it was just, shall we say, a more subtle railroad that was inside of a garden. Now the railroad has kind of taken over the garden. I had some interest in having a railroad, but I was thinking about a little indoor railroad, so I had purchased a small indoor railroad, and I sat and watched it for about an hour go around in a circle, and I said, this is no fun. So I knew I liked being outdoors. I was visiting a friend in Arizona who said, hey, I know you like trains. I've got a friend who's got a train in his backyard. And so I go, in Arizona, you just put it down on a bunch of gravel and you have your railroad. And so I said, I can do that. And it's a lot more difficult than I thought, but that's what gave me the idea, is seeing that backyard railroad in Arizona. So I kind of went from that. And the railroad is a way to give movement to a garden. I mean, it does not have to be this elaborate whatsoever. I think most people are fascinated about it. You never know if they're fascinated because they think you're crazy or fascinated because they think you've done something interesting. But a lot of the guys get a kick out of it because it's different. And it does make working in the garden a little more palatable when you're kind of dealing with a crane as opposed to just pulling weeds.